Time-lapse footage can be stunning. If you'd like to capture sequences like these, stay tuned. In this video, I'll take you along on an afternoon of capturing several time-lapse sequences, show you what's in my camera bag, and take a look at the footage that gear produced. If you find this video useful, please like and subscribe. A really quick note before we get started, while I bought most of this gear at retail price, I did get one camera when I worked at a camera store years ago, and likely got a discount. I'll point that camera out when we look at my gear later. Let's get outside and do some photography. All right, we are out at the tallgrass prairie where I'm doing my year-long time-lapse project. Only got about 2 months left, so we're getting down to the end. And there's a tree that one of the people that runs the prairie really likes. It's got enough leaves on it now. I think it's going to make for a good time-lapse. We've got some great clouds. It's a little windy, so I have to be careful with how we set the tripods up, but I think it's going to be a good look. I'm going to use my R50, which was converted to infrared. And because it likes to overheat, we're going to have to install a cooling system on the back of it. But I brought all that with me. May not actually need it. It's kind of cool out, so I think I'm going to try one sequence without the cooling system on. We've got plenty of clouds. And then if it overheats, we'll deal with it. I do have a second camera with me. Clean off this front element. Set this at a 2-second interval for 500 shots. Perfect exposure. So we're going to get this, make sure everything's locked down. And get that started. Probably take 20-30 minutes to shoot this sequence. Let's see if I can turn around and show you what we're taking a picture of. The little tree at the top of the hill is the important part. Shadows from the clouds are playing across the ground. That looks really dramatic in time lapses, particularly in infrared. This will probably look really great when we look at this footage later. This camera has had a habit of overheating in the past, but there's so much wind today, and it's kind of a chilly day. We're in the mid-50s Fahrenheit, so far it appears to be doing all right. I'll have to watch that. I did bring a cooling fan to cool it down if I need to. But for now, it seems to be doing okay. It should be just about done with its first sequence. And it looks like 62 shots left, so a few more minutes and then we're going to turn it around and aim down the hill, because that's a kind of pretty view. All right, it did just throw up a heat warning, so after I rotate this around before we actually start the sequence, I'm probably going to install the fan system, so you get to see that today. Spin this around and recompose a little bit, install that fan system, and I'll be right back. All right, I got the fan installed. I'm using a magic arm and a battery bank to power the fan. When I tested this earlier, it worked really well. I already manually focused the shot, and I'm happy with the composition, so now I just need to go into the menu and turn on the time-lapse feature. This camera doesn't have an intervalometer that will save individual images, and it lacks an external trigger port. It's really a limitation of the system. And there it goes. The benefit of all of that is it just spits out a movie. The bad thing is if you miss exposure at all, it can be really hard to get an acceptable output. It does not color grade much at all before it starts to fall apart. So you have to stick your exposure in camera, But other than that, it's pretty darn handy. All right, changed my mind. Didn't like that composition after all, so I zoomed out just a little bit. And now everything should be set. So get that started. And there it goes. Okay. Attempt 2. My visible light camera is just finishing up its final sequence. That'll be 2, and I think that's enough for today. I flipped the Canon sideways to grab a quick vertical shot for Instagram. And as soon as this one finishes up, I'll use this tripod to set up my second infrared camera, and we'll do a sequence with that. The second camera is going. It only has a mechanical shutter, which I try not to use for time lapses too often, because it's easy to rack up a super high shutter count, and eventually you're going to wear out the shutter. This is the first camera I ever converted infrared. It does have an intervalometer, but it only allows a 100 shot maximum, so sitting down on the ground is an external intervalometer set to a 2-second interval. We'll just let it run until we have about 500 shots. Just finishing up my last sequence with the second infrared camera. The sky started to look kind of interesting right as I was packing up, so I decided to shoot one more. When we get back to the studio, I'll show you what's in my camera bag when I do these kinds of shoots, and we'll look at the results. This is some of the footage from that first sequence shot on the R50. I think it looks really good and easily good enough to be used in my project. Here's part of the clip from the second sequence shot on that R50. And again, I think it looks great, and this may end up in my project as well. This is the first test of the Rokinon 12mm lens, and unfortunately, there is a hot spot. If I had to, I might be able to deal with that in post, but I got enough good footage from the R50 that I think this is probably going to get cut. The glowing part in the center of the screen is the problem. This last clip has the same issue, which is really too bad because otherwise I really like the footage. The hotspot flickers, which would take a lot of work to fix in post. Okay, let's take a look at what's in my camera bag. This is a Tenba bag that I really like. So, got a lot of things that I use because I do a lot of time lapses. One of them is Velcro. When it's windy, this keeps straps from blowing into shots. It's just handy to have around. Also, got a little Sennheiser. I think this is the MKE 200, and if not, I will correct myself on screen. It is not the greatest of microphones, but it's got a good system for dealing with wind noise, and it's really easy to pack because it's so small. This is the second camera, infrared camera that we used. I've got a Rokinon 12mm f2 lens and an Olympus EPL6 camera. This was the first camera I converted. At the time, I had a nicer Olympus, and I kind of wish I had done that. I didn't realize how much I was going to enjoy using infrared cameras, so kind of a mistake, but it still works. It's kind of my backup. This lens didn't work very well today. I was kind of hoping it would because it mimics the look that I get on my color camera on the wide end, but it hot-spotted, so say la vie. This is the camera that I use the most right now. It's an EOS R50. It has some good stuff and some bad stuff. I reviewed it separately. It was the first review I ever did on this channel. It overheats like crazy. That's the downside. And the other downside is it doesn't have an intervalometer port, nor does it have an intervalometer that allows you to save individual shots. Both of those are kind of a pain. But the image quality is good. The autofocus is good. And I'm using an old 17-40L lens, which on this camera, because it's an APS-C camera, ends up being a normal zoom. I also have a 10-18 that I use a lot if I need a wider angle. But this is really sharp, and it plays really well with infrared, no hot spotting. It doesn't flare particularly badly. I really enjoy this. Then this is my color camera, and a lot of the content on this channel is shot with this camera as well. It's an Olympus EM5 Mark III. It's a 20 megapixel camera, does 4K video. It's got really good autofocus. The lens on it is a 12-40 2.8 Pro, which on this system is 24-80 equivalent on a full frame. I love the manual focus clutch. If I'm autofocusing and it's not catching the right thing, I can just yank that back and do it manually. I usually have a variable ND filter. I think it is actually on the Canon over there. I'll swap them back and forth, and I'll show you some more filters that I carry with me later. The ND filters are handy for slowing down the shutter speed to get a cinematic look. I always carry a couple extra batteries at least, sometimes more than this, but I knew this would get me through what we had. Both Olympus cameras use the same battery, which is handy, and then this little batteries for the Canon. Always carry a spare Arca Swiss plate because the two tripods that I use for time-lapse the most often use Arca Swiss, and that way, if I forget to put a plate on, I can still shoot. Lens pen, handy thing to have. They're super cheap, just to knock dust off the front of a lens. And then this is a little cheap viewfinder for the Olympus. It is terrible, but on a really bright day, at least you can see what you're shooting at. And that's what's in the main compartment. One thing I love about this bag is it has a lot of storage. Usually this air blower is in the top, but it was pretty packed today with how I rigged up. Swing this around. It's got this roll top that lets you shove in more things when you want and roll it down to be a little more compact when you don't. This is the magic arm that I use to mount the power bank for the cooling fan. These are really neat. One control releases everything, so you can swing them around, get them positioned how you want, and then just tighten one control, and it gets rigid again. Clamp that onto a leg with a tripod and use a phone clamp on that side to hold the power bank. This is that cooling fan. I just got it. I've used it a couple times. The backside gets really cold. Seems to work really good. I've been able to shoot a lot longer with my R50 than I could before, so that was a handy little purchase. I don't know if the brands matter on that. That's the only one I've ever played with. It's the phone clamp. I use that for holding the battery for that cooling fan. It does have a battery that you can buy for it that just clips on, but I wasn't sure how well it was going to work, so I haven't invested in that yet. Then I have some filter mounts, filters, filter rings. I've got a ton of these. Just stuff that I use a lot. Most of them are variable NDs or polarizers. Occasionally I'll bring a separate filter for a different kind of infrared. One more, there it is. Nope. Too much stuff. There we go. These are some square filters. These are kind of fun because you can get graduated neutral densities that are darker on one side. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, you kind of can. So if you want to darken the sky, not the ground, you can mount them. Just dump these out all over the place. You can mount them in this little carrier, allows you to slide them up and down. Get that up so you can actually see. That side attaches to the filter ring on the lens, and then the square filters notch in and you can adjust the horizon up and down. Kind of handy. There's also some solid NDs in there to just darken up the shot a little. Handy system. I carry some spare memory cards, nothing giant. These are just old cards that I had laying around. For the same reason I carry extra plates. I have gotten out to the field without a memory card before, and that is really annoying. Then I've got my power bank and a 3-way cable. So this will charge my phone, run the battery on the cooling fan. Any little thing to have. I think most people probably have those in their bag at this point, but I do for a couple of different reasons, and that one seems to have a pretty good battery life. Cleaning cloth. This is an intervalometer. It's a cheap one I got online. Got a long cable. And one neat thing is that's the, I don't know if that's going to autofocus, but that's the end for the Olympus, but they're swappable. So there's a Canon and a Nikon and all sorts of different ends that come with it. So you can control just about any camera that has an external trigger port. I think one more set of filters. And I believe that's it. This has enough room. Often I will bring a snack with me, some juice. There's plenty of room for water and that kind of stuff, all of which is probably smart to bring. I did do a video on time lapse. I think I've done a couple, but I did one on going into details about settings and editing things and that sort of thing. So if you need that information, I'll leave a link to that video in the description below. Knocking things all over here off camera. As always, if you have questions, please leave them in the comments section. Good luck in your art journey. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.